So, how many people were here for the last time we were here? When we started out.
We have a fairly.
So we got a lot of new people here.
Yeah.
So I'm Bronson. This is Katy. I'm Hades Hammer on Vet, and she's lost Persephone. I'm going to kind of do a quick recap on what we talked about last time. So for everybody that's new here, kind of get an idea what Primal is, and then we're going to go into a few more details this time about going into headspace, going into dungeon etiquette specifically. That's a big area that's often not covered because a lot of dungeons do not allow primal play in the dungeon, just because it does take up some area. And primal play is often associated with edge play, so a lot of dungeons and public play spaces just don't allow it. But there is a correct way to do it, and there's a way that you can have a good, safe experience in a public setting, confined indoors. So, but Primal, starting out Primal, and if I forget anything, please feel free to jump in because I can't remember what I ate for lunch today. So. But Primal, kind of a down and dirty definition of Primal. Primal is stripping away what society leads you to believe the rules that you have to, I guess, obey. It's breaking yourself down to your natural feelings and your natural urges. And this is where a lot of the, if anybody's done any research on Primal, like the growling, the biting, that sort of stuff, that's just where it comes in. So you're taking your feelings and basically you're getting them down to what you do off of instinct. So it's something that you do and you're not even thinking about it. And we've got the mats up here right now, so we're going to be doing the wrestling portion, and a lot of the wrestling portion comes down to basic humans. Since the dawn of time, people have fought, animals have fought. That's the most primal urge that you can get is combat, basically. I mean, it's fighting will to survive. And what we do here is we're converting that, and we're converting that into energy. And it doesn't always have to be sexual energy. And it's not, I'm not going to say it's not for everybody, but for me, it's not about domination. It's not about making a partner submit. And we'll go into this here in a minute, but the submission comes from your negotiation and your partner. Oftentimes, really serious, heavy primal play is 100% dependent on your partner. This is the only person that I will ever go full primal with when we do a scene, because I know her. We've done this. We've had. This is what our relationship was founded on, primal. So we've negotiated, but it doesn't always have to be. I always have to go full primal and everything. So before I get too far ahead, some more of like primal, basic primal stuff is obviously the wrestling. We have primal hunts. There can be a lot of different kinds of primal hunts. I was listening to a podcast actually earlier today, and one of the topics that they brought up, and I don't think it was something that we talked about last time, was this person's primal prey had this white dress that she wore, or she bought for this hunt. And a lot of times you'll see on these hunts that white is a wardrobe that your prey will wear to get destroyed. And this goes back to a fantasy, I guess, a fantasy of a lady in white in the woods. And then the predator is basically stalking his prey. And the goal of a scene like that would be to catch his prey, rip the dress away, and then complete whatever you negotiated prior. But it's the stalk. Primal's like the feeling you get from hide and go seek when you were a kid. You know, when you're about to be caught, or you're the one that's about to catch somebody, you get that rush of energy and adrenaline. That's the headspace you're looking for with Primal. So, any questions thus far on the recap? I know I kind of threw a bunch of stuff all there at once, but from last visit's recap. Okay. So, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, you're doing a good job.
Okay. So, first thing, I want to talk about dungeon etiquette. She gets on me all the time for the way I say words, but dungeon etiquette. So, Primal play in a public play space. So, obviously, we know the general rules. They vary a little bit from dungeon to dungeon and where we're at. It is extremely important that you never do Primal play in any play space without asking permission first. A lot of dungeons you won't see a sign that says no Primal play. You won't hear it in the brief for a dungeon going to a new dungeon that says no Primal play. But the minute you start rolling with somebody on the floor, the DMs are going to come over there and be like, no, we're not doing this. So it is extremely important to ask first, because there are specific nights in a lot of dungeons that are only open to Primal for that night specifically. So it may be one time, like 1763 is one in Atlanta that we frequent a lot, and they have a specific Primal night. If you're not there on Primal night, you're not doing Primal. So, but that goes with, and it's safety. That's all it is. It's nobody's like, oh no, we're the fun police. It's a safety thing, because Primal can get very aggressive, especially when you don't know someone's dynamic. If somebody saw us playing in a public dungeon and they didn't know what our dynamic was, they'd be, oh my God, they're about to kill each other. So it's permission is always the first thing you ask in a public play space. Obviously, if you're at a Primal only event, then that's not as big of a deal. Next, breath play, edge play, knife play. All this can be rolled into Primal scenes. So that's something that not only needs to be negotiated, but that could be one of the house rules. No breath play. No knife play. Personally, I don't like knives on, these aren't my mats, but I don't like knives on my mats because they're expensive and you don't want to keep replacing them. So we never do any kind of blade play on the mats. And then a lot of dungeons won't. It's frowned upon.
They just don't want sharp things on the mats that could cut them.
So, following up on that, more etiquette is be mindful of your play space. This stuff does definitely cost money, so just like you would do on a spanking bench or anything else, don't have anything sharp on you. Definitely no jewelry, no necklaces, anything that could puncture these mats or endanger you or someone else or potentially draw blood is something you do not want to put out here on the mats. Let's see.
And then when you're done with your scene, just like he said, if you use a cross or a spanking bench, clean it afterwards, because you're going to get sweaty. You know, you're going to have body fluids maybe on the mat, so you just want to clean it for the next person who might use it.
Yep. And generally, like in a group event where we do this and there's wrestling, that the people that do the scene aren't necessarily the ones that have to clean up. Everybody else comes in, you give a bunch of banging on the mats, everybody loved the scene, everybody that watched it comes in and cleans up for the next pair that are going to be on, have their mat time. So, is there anything else you can think of with etiquette?
Just be mindful of your scene. So, in a public setting, when we have a scene, I never go like full Primal, because I want to still be like cognizant of the people around me. Like, you're sitting here, you're sitting there. I don't want to like flip around and like kick somebody in the face or anything like that, you know, like, so I never really just kind of totally zone out and go into full Primal when I'm in public. Now when we're at the house, that's different, you know, because it's just us.
in the drywall.
Yeah, we might knock a hole in the drywall, but at least, you know, it won't be somebody's face, so. But yeah, so that's just something to be mindful of. Like, definitely let yourself loose and do what you want to do, but also in the back of your mind, remember that there are other people around you, and you need to be mindful of not hitting them or throwing yourself onto them. Or if you're in a public dungeon and say, you know, you've got like a cross over here, a spanking bench over there, you don't want to slip into their scene and ruin their scene. So, you know, just like with anything, just be mindful of your space and where your body's going and what you're doing.
So next, we're going to talk about negotiation again, because negotiation is huge. I know we spent a lot of time on this last time, but these scenes with Primal can get very aggressive. Negotiation, I think, needs to go another level above what you would normally do on an impact scene.
Just because it's so emotionally charged, or it can be emotionally charged.
It can be very emotionally charged, and like we touched on last time, you can get in a headspace. Your headspace can take you wherever it takes you. I mean, it can turn into spanking. It can turn into consensual non-consent. It can get very aggressive. I mean, Primal. Once you've truly been in a primal headspace, all this will click, and you'll be like, I know exactly what they're talking about now, because it will take you to another place to where you don't act like you normally would when you get in that true primal headspace. So talk to your partner. I wouldn't ever recommend anyone going more than 50% with somebody they don't know and don't have a relationship that they've built with. Just one of the good rules that I like to have whenever I do Primal with other males is very first rule that we negotiate is this is not a submission. This is us exchanging power, exchanging energy, but this isn't who can make the other person submit. And a lot of times with males, it's testosterone that gets pumping and things go from 0 to 100 really quick. So if it ever gets to that point, it's you just stop, especially once something that's negotiated has been violated. And it's you can get just the amount of energy and just the amount of headspace that you want to be, being completely straight and wrestling with other males or other females. But again, it's the energy, it's the power, you're just exchanging that, and that's what Primal is really about, is exchanging energy, no matter what that energy may be. It's different for everybody. It's a bunch of different things for us.
Yeah.
It just depends on where our head's at when we talk about it.
And something to remember too is our primal will not be your primal. Your primal will not be their primal. Everybody's primal looks different, and that's kind of like the big takeaway here. We'll do it our way. You'll have your way of doing it, and that's fine. I'll never sit here and be like, oh, they're doing primal wrong. No, that's not how it works. Like, if you wanna, act like, if you have like an animal spirit that you wanna have come out when you do your scene, that's great. If we don't, that's great. Like, it'll look different, and that's why I think I like Primal so much, is because it looks so different for everybody. I mean, like when the last time we did this, we saw a lot of really cool things that we've never even tried. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like our scenes have never looked like that. I just think it's really cool, and I think that's one of the fun things about it, is it can look so different.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll be laughing, sometimes we'll be biting, sometimes we'll be growling. It's
about feeling the raw emotions, and if you're feeling like silly during your primal scene and you're laughing and teasing each other, then that's what you needed to feel. Or if you're like amped up and kind of getting a little aggressive and mad, and that's just what you need to release, then that's what happens.
Yep. And so it can be anything, and it can evolve throughout the thing.
Yeah.
She cold clocks me in the jaw, and it turns into something really different really quick. So, but we can read each other like that too. And I mean, I know when she gives me signs like that, okay, this went from what I call Thunderdome Primal with the toys laying around there, and it's whoever can get to start whipping, to, and we do breath play at our house, and we do. It's not uncommon to have an open-handed slap. I don't ever actually. It's our primal at our house. So I'm just saying it can get very aggressive, but I know it can go from being playful and fun to one slap in the jaw, and this is about to turn into a full-on consensual non-consent scene. So it evolves, and it is what you make it. It's whatever you want it to be to get you to the headspace that you want to be in. But it is, again, stripping yourself down to the primal urges. And I never thought I would growl. I never thought I would bite. It just came out one day, and I'm like, all right, I like this. So, but yeah, it's all about talking to your partner and knowing what your partner is, and or what your partner wants out of it. So with that being said, it brought concerns earlier about age. So all of us like to think that we're 20 years old again, and we're 20 years old again, and we're everything's flexible and doesn't hurt. Things hurt. A good roll on a primal mat, and I'm stuck in the bed the next day. So talk about it. You don't have to go 100 miles an hour. Talk about what's okay. Talk about what bends. Injuries are a huge thing. If you've got past knee injuries, back injuries, arm injuries, talk about it. Say, look, this arm's bad, and I've had this in scenes when guys were a lot bigger than me. I'm like, look, this knee's bad. Watch this knee, because I'm done after that. So you got to talk about it. Talk about what hurts, and talk about old injuries, so you don't ruin your entire evening, because it's so easy to do with this, especially if things get aggressive. And again, can't say this enough, public play spaces, make sure if you're going to do breath play that it is allowed. Never take somebody to the point of passing out, basically, in any kind of public space. But it's just better, good rule of thumb, just avoid it. Avoid it in public places. There's so many other things that you can do and have fun with in public spaces that are allowed, that it's better to avoid that altogether. So we know negotiation. So now the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to talk about tonight were headspaces. So primal headspace is obviously different from everybody, or for everybody, and I know we've kind of mentioned this a few times. Everybody's primal's different. Everybody's primal doesn't have to be wrestling. It could be head nuzzling. It could be like purring, like growling. It could be something that you saw on, I haven't watched cartoons in for, like a Bambi movie or something, where they're nestling together, and it could just be
like cuddling.
It could be basically cuddling.
It could be sensual. It doesn't have to be aggressive all the time.
Yeah, completely sensual. That's primal headspace. That's getting the goal that you wanted to get without having any sort of violent act at all. Primal does not always have to be about violence, and that's something that's very much misunderstood about primal, because when people think about it, it's the wrestling, the chase, the predator, the prey. It doesn't have to be. It's getting yourself and your partner to a very intimate place, whether that be sexually intimate, mentally intimate, or just getting your head spaces together, or just taking care of your partner. I may not be in the headspace, she may be in a headspace and need more. I'm going to use her body language that she's doing from her primal body language to tell me what to do next. So I want everyone to take that away, that it's not all just go go go. It can actually you can get very primal in aftercare. But again, you run the risk of getting yourself back into another headspace and needing more aftercare. But yeah, so it's the head and headspace is ultimately what it's all about. It's just getting where you want to be to feel your release and to feel where you're most connected to your partner and to yourself. I mean, that's ultimately the goal is for all of this, for the kink community. I mean, it's all about getting into the headspace. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, pretty good.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So, do we have any questions?
Can you speak a little bit more about the consensual non-consent?
Okay. So, for complete lack of a better way to explain consensual and non-consent, rape scenes. That's basically what CNC is, and you'll hear it called CNC. So if you ever hear that, that's what CNC is. It's doing something that you have talked about, but you're getting no, and this is where safe words come into play huge on this.
And knowing your partner very
And
well.
knowing your partner. It took us a long time to get there, but we know, I mean, when we're at home, we don't generally negotiate beforehand. We let things evolve as they will, but I know my boundaries, and I know what I'm allowed to do. But so consensual non-consent, when it comes to Primal, has to be discussed, everything. So if someone wants their pants to stay on, they stay on. But if you're going to go otherwise and you know that it's going to turn into sex on the mat, then you need to talk about that beforehand. That way, if your partner's going, no, stop, don't, crying, anything like that, you have a negotiated safe word. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend yellow, red, green, stop, any of that. You need to have a legitimate safe word that there is no misunderstanding what's being communicated on that. And like I said, it's generally not for people that haven't been in longer term relationships to get that far in the head. But if you can negotiate it and both parties on board, it is one of the greatest experiences you will ever have, and you combine that in with Primal. I'm not going to lie.
Well, for you it is anyways.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing because you're building up that energy. You're building up that, and we've done it where we've been growling and fighting and biting, and then it turns into just me doing whatever I want, her fighting the entire time, until ultimate just submission, and then.
It's very sensual.
And it's incredibly sensual. I mean, enough to where we're both laying in puddles of sweat for like 3 hours afterwards. Just we fell asleep on our mats before. So, I mean, more than once we finished a scene and both of us have woken up like 2 hours later, laying on the mats in the dungeon.
Touching each other.
Yeah, just like because we're both so hot, we don't want to actually touch each other. But, so it is an incredible feeling if you can get there and negotiate that with a partner.
If that's something you're looking into wanting to do.
And again, your primal is different from our primal. Your primal is what you make of it. So for the people that are new, Primal's obviously not just the mat stuff. Primal is the woods. There's a lot of information out there on outdoor events for Primal, the chases, the hunts through the woods. A lot of the really big events are invite only. You have to be vetted, so you have to be in a community for a little while to get to go to these. I know there's Beast Mode in Alabama, and it's like a 3 or 4 day camping event, which is nothing but primal hunts. So that's a big one to look into. You can dig on FET and find some information if you guys are interested in that. I think there's one down here around Orlando somewhere. We'll have to get more involved in it. So we hadn't been on FET a whole lot here lately, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of events, and then just like here, they opened up the venue for us. So hey, let's do Primal. So this is actually a very rare opportunity here. So we're all fortunate to have this and to be able to do this here and bring this to the community and spread the knowledge. Another good source of information. There is a group, Instinct, on FET. There's good information on Instinct. Pull up, if you got podcasts on your phone, pull up your podcast, type in Primal Play. Listen to the podcasts. They're great. They can explain it so much better than I can. And for people that have many years in the BDSM community, and then they bring in a lot of guests that are subject matter experts in their field. And so yeah, don't be scared to look into those, because the podcasts are really good. You can learn a lot more than Katie and I can tell you. So questions?